For 4 years, a veteran carried an old leash he never used. He thought his canine had vanished forever on a winter road that took his best friend too. Then one quiet morning, a weak sound came from a wood cabin beyond the forest road. Inside was an aging German shepherd with silver on his muzzle and a name the world had erased. But the hardest truth was not where Rook had been. It was whether love could still feel safe after so many years of fear. Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The snowmobile's left track had been making the wrong sound for 3 days. Corbin Leander West heard it as he leaned over the open housing in the rescue garage, guiding a wrench beside the drive shaft. Snowlight poured through the high windows, turning the tools pale and sharp. He preferred machines because they complained honestly. A worn bearing clicked. A damaged line leaked. People could carry a fault for years and still insist nothing was wrong. At 56, Corbin remained broad through the shoulders and solid from hauling engines and rescue sleds. Beneath a charcoal canvas vest, he wore an olive-drab combat shirt with muted camouflage sleeves. His brown hair, silvering at the temples, was cut in a neat undercut. He kept his face clean-shaven, though the cold deepened every line around his gray-hazel eyes. The garage radio crackled. West, Sheriff's Office needs a tracked vehicle on Forest Road 17. Delivery driver reported a dog inside the old Harlan cabin. Roads buried past the third switchback. Corbin looked through the open bay. The storm had passed before dawn, leaving the Clearwater Valley beneath a brilliant blue sky. Snow covered the pines and softened the mountains. The morning was bright enough to make trouble seem impossible. "Who's going in?" Deputy Donnelly, 5 minutes out. "I'll take the rescue sled." Kira Donnelly arrived in a county SUV with snow packed around the wheel wells. At 43, she had the compact, steady bearing of someone who never confused speed with control. Her auburn hair was braided beneath a navy cap, and a thin scar crossed the upper edge of her right eyebrow. She wore a navy winter parka over a charcoal uniform, with a body camera fixed to her chest. They loaded a trauma kit, bolt cutters, a rescue blanket, and a collapsible stretcher. "Cabin supposed to be empty," Kara said. Driver stopped nearby to clear ice from a tire chain, heard a weak dog twice. "Place has been empty 8 years. You know the road? Better than the county map does." The tracked machine carried them beyond the plowed route and into the forest. Forest Road 17 was little more than a shallow depression between the pines. In places, drifts rose nearly to the hood. Sunlight spilled through the branches in clean golden bars, but the deeper they traveled, the more tightly the forest seemed to hold its silence. No wind moved the upper limbs. No birds crossed the road. At the third switchback, Corbin slowed. Faint tire impressions disappeared beneath new snow near an old service spur. "Recent?" Kara asked. "Before the storm. Heavy truck." She photographed the tracks and marked the location. The cabin appeared between 2 white pines, its roof bowed beneath snow. Sunlight warmed the weathered logs to the color of old honey. From a distance, it looked peaceful. Up close, the front door stood open by 2 inches. Kira activated her body camera and approached the porch. "Clearwater County Sheriff's Office. Is anyone inside?" No answer. She called again. The cabin returned only a soft interior creak. Then came a sound too weak to be called a bark. Kira's expression tightened. Animal in immediate distress. "Temperature below freezing. I'm entering." She pushed the door inward. Cold wood, damp cloth, old diesel, and stale air met them. Her flashlight moved across a broken chair, several food tins, and a length of chain lying over the floorboards. Something shifted in the far corner. A large German shepherd lay beneath a ragged blanket, secured to a support post by a short-coated cable. A worn leather restraint circled the muzzle. Black and gold fur clung in dirty mats along a body far too thin. The dog tried to stand, its front legs braced, but the hindquarters trembled and gave way. Corbin saw only an abandoned working dog at first. He knew how to move around frightened animals, slowly, without staring, without blocking the only escape they believed they had. Then Kara's flashlight crossed the dog's face. A small crescent was missing from the right ear. The light dropped to the front paws. One toe on the left paw was white. Corbin's hand tightened around the doorframe. 4 years collapsed inside him. Headlights swallowed by snow, Gabriel gripping the dashboard. The vehicle sliding where no road should have been. He remembered waking in a hospital and asking for Rook before asking about himself. He remembered maps spread across his kitchen, search routes crossed out one after another, and the winter when he finally stopped calling shelters because hope had become another form of punishment. "No," he whispered. He stepped into the room. His boot brushed the chain. Metal scraped across wood. The dog recoiled, the cable snapping taut. Its head dropped, ears flattened, and the whole body folded inward. Corbin froze. Rook had once slept beneath helicopter rotors. The dog in the corner carried his old face, but none of his old certainty. Kira looked back. "Corbin?" He could not answer. From beneath his vest, he drew a small brass whistle darkened with age, then stopped. The sound would be too sharp here. Instead, he shaped 2 quiet notes with his lips. The signal that had once meant only, "Look at me." The dog lifted his head. Amber eyes found him through the dimness. Rook. The name emerged smaller than Corbin intended. The damaged ear shifted forward. Rook did not wag, crawl, or make the joyful sound Corbin had imagined during countless sleepless nights. But he kept looking at him. "You know him?" Kara asked softly. Corbin nodded. He lowered himself several feet away, favoring his injured left shoulder, and removed his gloves. Then he placed one bare hand flat against the floor, palm down. "I'm not going to pull you," he said. "You decide." Rook watched him. Outside, snow slipped from a branch and brushed the roof. Kira lowered her flashlight, leaving the room in softer light. Corbin wanted to cross the distance, cut the cable, and gather the dog into his arms. He wanted one gesture to undo 4 lost years, but too many choices had already been taken from Rook, so he waited. The dog moved one paw, stopped, then moved again. The cable allowed only a few feet. At its limit, Rook lowered his head toward Corbin's hand. His nose hovered above the knuckles, then he touched them. The contact was light and uncertain. Corbin did not move. Rook drew one deeper breath and closed his eyes. Kira turned slightly, giving the moment privacy without leaving them unprotected. Then she documented the restraint and fastening point before bringing the bolt cutters forward. "I'm cutting him free," she said for the camera. No other items disturbed. The cutter closed with a hard snap. Rook flinched but did not retreat from Corbin. Kira removed the leather restraint carefully. Near the wall, she found a specialized kennel latch, attached to webbing, part of a faded vaccination tag, and a strip of metal stamped with 4 visible digits. "Transport hardware," Corbin said. "Don't touch it, I know." She photographed each object where it lay and called Dr. Felicity Arden at the North Haven Veterinary Clinic, describing Rook's condition and requesting heated transport. Corbin unfolded the rescue blanket and wrapped it around Rook without lifting him. Beneath the fabric, the dog felt frighteningly light. When Corbin's hand moved toward the collar line, Rook tensed. Corbin stopped immediately and rested his palm against the shoulder instead. "I came back," he whispered. The words felt wrong as soon as he said them. He had come back today. Rook had been waiting for 4 years. Kara and Corbin slid the stretcher beside him. They moved slowly, allowing Rook to see every hand and every shift of the blanket. Once settled, the old shepherd kept his head raised despite the effort. They carried him through the doorway into the brilliant winter morning. Rook did not look back at the cabin. He did not look toward the trees or the road. His eyes remained fixed on Corbin's face, searching it with tired, guarded attention, as though the man beside him might vanish into memory if he looked away. At the rescue sled, Corbin adjusted the blanket around Rook's neck. His fingers brushed something woven beneath the matted fur. He parted it carefully. A narrow strip of faded blue fabric remained beneath the throat, frayed almost to threads. Along one edge ran uneven yellow stitching. Corbin knew those stitches. Gabriel had sewn them at Corbin's kitchen table the winter before the accident, laughing at his own clumsy work and insisting the collar would last longer because it had character. Corbin closed his fingers around the fragment. For the first time since they entered the cabin, Rook's tail moved once against the blanket. Not a greeting, not forgiveness, only proof that something from the life they had lost had survived with him. North Haven Veterinary Clinic sat between a closed bait shop and a bakery that kept its windows fogged all winter. By the time Corbin carried Rook through the front door, the morning sun had climbed high enough to turn the snowbanks outside into blinding white walls. The clinic smelled of clean towels, antiseptic, cedar shavings, and warm air pushed through an old furnace that clicked before every breath. Dr. Felicity Arden was waiting in the treatment room with the table lowered and a stack of blankets already warmed. She did not rush toward them. That was the first thing Corbin noticed. Felicity had worked around military dogs long enough to know that fear could grow larger when kindness moved too fast. She stood a few feet back, dark hair cut in a clean bob around her jaw, a wide streak of silver running through the right side like moonlight caught in ink. Her sage-green scrubs were covered by a pale fleece jacket, and a burgundy stethoscope rested around her neck. "Set him down slowly," she said. "Let him see the room first." Corbin obeyed. Rook's head lifted as the stretcher touched the padded table. His amber eyes moved from Felicity to Kara, then back to Corbin. The old shepherd did not struggle, but every muscle in him seemed to be waiting for the next wrong sound. Kira stayed near the doorway, gloves still on, snow melting from the seams of her boots. She had already bagged the faded collar fragment separately, and the small evidence pouch hung from her left hand. Her body camera was off now, but her attention had not softened. "Possible prolonged confinement," she said. "Found attached to a support post in an abandoned structure. Body condition poor, no known owner on site." Corbin almost corrected her. Rook had an owner. Then he looked at the dog's ribs beneath the dirty coat, at the way Rook flinched when Felicity reached for a towel, and the words stayed behind his teeth. Felicity listened without interrupting. Then she turned to Corbin. "You know this dog?" Corbin nodded once. "His name is Rook." The name changed the room. Not loudly, not in any way that anyone else could have measured. But Rook's left ear shifted, and the tip of his damaged right ear lifted as far as it could. Felicity saw it. "Good," she murmured. "Names can help, but we won't ask much from him yet." She began the exam with her hands visible and her voice low. She checked Rook's gums, listened to his heart, felt along his spine, shoulders, hips, and hind legs. When she touched the right rear leg, Rook pulled away and gave a short breath through his nose. "Arthritis," she said. "Muscle loss, too. Some of that is age, some isn't." Corbin stood with both hands braced on the edge of a counter, his fingers pressed so hard against the metal that the knuckles went pale. Felicity looked up at him. "He is dehydrated, undernourished, stiff through the hips. He has pressure wear around the neck and muzzle. I also see signs of stress response, but I'm not seeing anything that requires emergency surgery right now." Corbin closed his eyes for half a second. The relief hurt. It did not wash over him. It struck somewhere below the ribs, hard and bright. Rook was alive. Rook was not beyond help. Rook had been within reach of losing everything and had somehow remained present enough to recognize a two-note signal from a life that should have been gone. He needs fluids, warmth, pain control, food in small amounts, and quiet. Felicity continued. Not excitement, not long walks, not visits back to that cabin, not old training drills, no searching, no testing what he remembers. Corbin opened his eyes. "Yes, you were," she said, not sharply. "Maybe not today, maybe not on purpose, but you were going to look for the dog you lost. I need you to see the dog in front of you." Kira's gaze flicked to Corbin, then away. He wanted to resent Felicity for saying it. Instead, he found that he could not. Rook lay with his muzzle resting on the towel, exhausted but awake. His eyes followed Corbin's smallest movement. Felicity brought out a microchip scanner and passed it over Rook's shoulders. Nothing sounded. She tried again, slower. Still nothing. Kara's expression changed only slightly, but Corbin knew the meaning of that silence. Without a chip, without a clean record, everything became more complicated. Identity, ownership, investigation. The story Corbin already knew in his bones would still have to prove itself in the language of forms and numbers. Chips migrate, Felicity said, especially after trauma, weight loss, or poor handling. I want the long-range scanner. A young veterinary assistant brought in a larger device, then stepped back when Felicity raised a hand. Fewer people. Less pressure. Felicity started at the left shoulder, then moved down the chest, along the ribs, over the back, and toward the right side. The scanner gave a faint chirp near the rear of the shoulder blade, almost too quick to catch. She stopped. Rook tensed. Easy, Corbin whispered, then stopped himself from adding an old command. Felicity adjusted the angle and passed the scanner again. This time the number appeared. Kara read it from the screen and wrote it down. Corbin did not need the full sequence. The first 4 digits were enough to make the ears fold inward again. Felicity entered the number into her terminal. The printer hummed. The page came out slowly, as if even the machine understood that some truths should not arrive too quickly. Registered name, Rook. Working canine classification, retired military service support. Primary handler, Corbin Leander West. Secondary program contact, Gabriel Stowe. For a while nobody spoke. Corbin stared at the page until the letters blurred. He had imagined finding a collar in a ditch, a tag in an evidence box, maybe old bones uncovered by spring thaw. He had imagined many terrible endings because endings were easier to survive than unanswered hope. He had never imagined paperwork bringing a friend back from winter. Kara's phone buzzed. She stepped into the hallway to speak with the sheriff's office, her voice low and clipped. The old accident file would have to be reopened. The cabin would need another team. The transport hardware would need tracking. Corbin barely heard her. He was watching Rook. The dog's eyes had started to drift shut when a metal tray on a nearby counter shifted under the assistant's hand. It slid an inch and struck the wall with a clean, hard sound. Rook changed instantly. His head snapped up. His body pressed backward against the side of the table. The blanket tangled under his front legs as he tried to retreat from something that was no longer in the room. Down, Corbin said by instinct. The word left him before he could stop it. Rook froze. Then he pulled away from Corbin and backed into the corner of the lowered table, trembling so hard the blanket moved beneath him. The room went still. Felicity did not reach for the dog. She reached instead for Corbin, holding one hand out to stop him from stepping closer. No commands, she said quietly. Corbin's throat tightened. That was our word. It may not be only yours anymore. The sentence landed gently. That made it worse. Corbin looked at Rook and saw, for the first time without denial, that memory had not preserved them. It had continued without him. Other voices had used words. Other hands had taken hold. Other rooms had taught Rook that obedience could be tied to fear. Felicity waited until Rook's breathing slowed. Then she placed a towel on the floor near the table and lowered the lights slightly. He remembers you, she said. That matters. But remembering is not the same as feeling safe. If you want him back, Corbin, you don't begin with what he used to do. You begin with what he can tolerate now. Kara returned from the hallway with her notebook open. The accident report says you, Gabriel Stowe, and 3 retired working dogs were traveling toward the Montana Intake Center on January 28th. 4 years ago, she said. North Meridian Animal Transit sent an updated route instruction because of weather closures. Corbin nodded, though the memory arrived in fragments rather than sequence. Gabriel laughing at the radio static, Rook standing braced behind the seats. A white road with no edge, a sign half buried in snow, then nothing clean enough to hold. The route took you toward Clearwater Pass, Kara continued, but that pass was already closed. It was supposed to be open, Corbin said. According to the county road office, it wasn't. Hadn't been for 6 hours. Felicity looked from Kara to Corbin but did not interrupt. 2 dogs were recovered in their transport crates, Kara said. Rook and 1 other dog were listed as missing after the accident. Search teams found Rook's collar hardware, but no body. The assumption was exposure. The word sounded clinical. It did not carry the weight of 2 years walking roads after snowmelt, calling a name into places that answered with nothing. Kira took the faded vaccination tag from the evidence pouch and held it up inside the clear bag. This was in the cabin. Partial clinic code on the back. I ran what I could through the state database. It links to a veterinary office that used to provide contract exams for North Meridian. That office closed 3 years ago. The vet lost his license. Why? False records. Not enough detail yet. Corbin looked at Rook again. The old shepherd's head had lowered onto the towel, but his eyes remained open. North Meridian handled Gabriel's program, Corbin said. They moved dogs from bases, county facilities, private handlers. He trusted them. Kira's expression did not harden exactly. It settled. Then we follow the records, carefully. By late afternoon, Rook had been moved into a quiet recovery kennel with warm bedding, fluids running through a line. Felicity had placed with practiced calm, and a bowl of softened food he had only sniffed. Snowlight faded from the clinic windows. The bakery next door turned on its sign, filling the front room with a soft orange glow. Corbin refused coffee twice. Kira accepted one and drank it standing up while she worked through calls. She spoke with the sheriff, then the old responding officer from the accident, then someone at the state office. Each conversation added a thin line to a picture still too incomplete to trust. Near sunset, a deputy arrived from the sheriff's office with a sealed envelope. No return address, he said. Left in the outside drop box sometime today. Front desk thought Deputy Donnelly should see it. Kira opened it at the exam counter while Corbin stood across from her. Inside were photographs printed on cheap paper, rows of transport kennels, close-ups of collars, a list of identification numbers, some typed, some written by hand. Several had been crossed out and replaced with new names. At the bottom of the stack lay a single note. Kira read it once, then handed it to Corbin. The handwriting shook in places. The dog in the cabin was never recorded alive. Corbin felt the sentence settle over him with a coldness deeper than the weather outside. Rook had not simply vanished. Someone had made him disappear on paper. Later, when the clinic had quieted and Kira had left to secure the envelope as evidence, Corbin sat alone beside Rook's recovery kennel. He had brought the old leash from his truck, a dark blue strip of nylon with yellow thread where Gabriel had once repaired a tear. He placed it on the floor outside the kennel door. He did not whistle. He did not speak a command. He did not ask the old dog to prove anything. Rook watched the leash for a long time. Then, slowly, with effort that made Corbin's chest ache, Rook stretched one paw through the gap beneath the kennel door. His nails caught the nylon. Inch by inch, he dragged the leash closer until it touched the blanket inside. Only then did Rook lower his head onto it. Corbin sat back in the chair and covered his mouth with one hand. This was not the return he had dreamed of. It was smaller, it was harder, it was real. By the next morning, the envelope had turned the sheriff's conference room into a map of missing lives. Kira Donnelly taped photocopies across the whiteboard instead of the originals. Each sheet held numbers, dates, kennel labels, transport routes, and photographs of dogs whose names had been crossed out or replaced. Some entries were neat enough to look official. Others looked hurried, as if someone had changed the truth with one eye on the door. Corbin stood at the far end of the table with his arms folded, saying nothing. Silence had been useful to him most of his life. In the service, it kept him focused. In rescue work, it let him hear the difference between wind and a human voice buried under distance. Here, it only made room for anger. Kara circled 3 identification numbers with a blue marker. These dogs were listed as deceased, she said, but none of the files include an independent veterinary certificate. Just internal transport notes from North Meridian. A man in a charcoal wool coat leaned over the table and adjusted his glasses. Adrian Crowell had arrived from the State Financial Investigations Office with a leather briefcase, a small calculator, and the patience of someone who trusted paper more than volume. He was 48, broad through the face but lean in the body, with close-cut black hair touched by silver at the temples and a trimmed line of beard along his jaw. He tapped one of the entries. North Meridian received payment for delivery to a nonprofit intake center, Full payment, mileage, handling fee, medical transfer fee. He moved his finger to another page. The receiving center never signed for the dog. Kira looked at him. Could be clerical. 1 dog, yes. 2, maybe. This many means someone built a system. Adrian opened a folder and spread out copies of invoices. Fuel, kennel cleaning, temporary boarding, private security consulting. Several dogs later appear under new names in records connected to private protection firms. Ages changed, breed descriptions softened, microchip fields listed as unreadable or pending replacement. Corbin's jaw tightened. They were selling them. Adrian did not answer quickly. That is where the money points. Money points. Corbin hated the phrase because it was calm. He wanted something in the room to break open and admit what it had done. But Adrian handled the papers with the care of a surgeon, and Kira kept building the board 1 patient line at a time. Corbin turned toward the door. I'm going to North Meridian. No, Kira said. He stopped. Her voice had not risen, but it carried enough weight to hold him there. You walk into that office, they know exactly where we're looking, she said. If there are more dogs, they move them. If there are more records, they vanish. If someone inside is scared enough to talk, you may scare them back into silence. They had Rook for 4 years. I know. You don't know what that means. Kara looked at him for a long moment. I know what losing a working dog does to a person, and I know what happens when that person tries to turn grief into a search warrant. The words struck hard because they were not cruel. Corbin looked away first. At the clinic, Rook was awake more often now. Not strong, not well, but present. Corbin visited every morning and every afternoon. He brought his old charcoal field jacket, folded it beside the recovery kennel, and sat in the same chair with a paperback he rarely managed to read. He did not whistle. He did not ask Rook to heel, stay, watch, or come. Some days Rook ate 3 bites. Some days he only drank water and slept. Once, when a cart rattled in the hallway, he lifted his head and searched for an exit until Felicity shut the clinic door and dimmed the lights. Corbin learned not to fill every silence with apology. Late on the 4th afternoon, Felicity opened the kennel door and stepped back. Rook looked at her, then at Corbin. You don't have to move, Corbin said. Rook rose slowly. His right hind leg shook before it steadied. He stepped out onto the rubber mat, sniffed Corbin's boot, and walked past him. Corbin did not reach out. Rook circled once, chose a spot several feet away, and lowered himself to the floor with a tired sigh. Then he slept, not lightly, not with one eye open and his head lifted toward the door, slept. Corbin sat very still, the unread book open in his lap. Felicity watched from the treatment counter, her expression soft but careful. That, she said, is a better sign than obedience. Corbin swallowed and turned one page he had not read. Kara found the sender of the envelope through small things, not dramatic ones. The drop box outside the sheriff's office had no clear camera angle, but the bakery across the street had a security camera pointed toward its delivery door. The footage showed an older woman in a gray coat crossing the sidewalk at 6:18 a.m., holding a burgundy canvas bag close to her side. The envelope had been bought at a postal counter 15 miles away. Cash, no name. But the clerk remembered the woman because she asked whether the envelope would keep photographs dry in snow. 2 hours later, Kara and Corbin sat in a small interview room with Vera Hensley. Vera looked smaller than her file photograph. 61, pale from worry rather than age, with yellow-gray hair tied loosely at the back of her neck. Her hands were narrow and work-worn, the knuckles enlarged by years of handling frightened animals, medicine bottles, and latches. She wore a smoke blue sweater beneath a faded gray coat, and a tiny pin shaped like a pine leaf was fixed to the strap of her bag. Kira placed a glass of water on the table. Mrs. Hensley, we're not here because of the envelope alone. Vera kept her eyes on the glass. I don't know what envelope you mean. Kara slid one photocopied image across the table. A line of transport kennels filled the page. Vera did not touch it. I worked for many companies, she said. North Meridian Animal Transit? For a time. You were a veterinary technician there. I cleaned kennels, logged medication, nothing more. Adrian, seated in the corner with his notebook, did not speak. His presence was quiet but firm, like a locked cabinet. Kira opened another folder and turned a photograph toward Vera. Rook lay in the clinic recovery kennel, head on the old blue leash, his amber eyes half open. Vera covered her mouth with both hands. For the first time since she entered, her face broke. "Oh," she whispered, "he made it." Corbin leaned forward. "You knew him." Vera shut her eyes. Kira let the silence do its work. When Vera spoke again, her voice had lost its rehearsed caution. "North Meridian was clean when I started. At least, I thought it was. Retired dogs came in, we checked joints, teeth, chips, temperament. Most went to veterans, handlers, rescue homes." She touched the edge of the photograph with one trembling finger. Then Mr. Croft began saying some dogs had secondary value. Better training, better response, better bloodlines. He said, a dog that cost taxpayers thousands to train shouldn't be given away for gratitude. "Benton Croft," Adrian said. Vera nodded without looking at him. At first it was paperwork, a dog declared unfit for placement, a transfer delayed, a chip that couldn't be read, then the dog would be gone, and a new file would appear with another name. Kira asked, "Where did they go?" "Private buyers, security contractors, people who wanted control more than companionship." Corbin's hands closed into fists beneath the table. "Rook," he said. "Tell me about Rook." Vera's breathing changed. After the accident, men from North Meridian reached the site before official responders. They were monitoring the route. They knew the van had gone off the pass. Her voice thinned. Rook was loose near the road, disoriented, still trying to go back toward the vehicle. Corbin looked down. For one moment, the interview room disappeared. He saw snow in the headlights again, saw Gabriel's hand braced against the dashboard, heard nothing after the impact but wind. "They took him," Vera said. "The chip tied him to the route change. If he was found alive, people might ask why his file said something different. Mr. Croft told me to mark him deceased, and you did," Corbin said. Vera did not flinch. Yes, the word was small and complete. Corbin stood so quickly the chair legs scraped the floor. Kara rose halfway, not touching him but ready. "You could have called someone," he said. "I know. You could have walked into a sheriff's office. I know. He was alive." Vera looked at him then, and there was no defense in her face, only a grief too tired to stand upright. "I kept him alive because I was too afraid to save him properly," she said. "That is the truth." The room went quiet. Vera explained the rest in pieces. Rook had been moved between holding sites when inspections came near. He refused new handlers. He would not settle with buyers. He reacted badly to metal kennel rooms and transport trucks, and eventually Benton stopped seeing him as valuable. Vera altered dosage notes so he received medicine when he needed it. She marked him as unstable when buyers came through, making him harder to sell. She slipped food and blankets into kennels when she could. Once, when a supervisor wanted him moved farther east, she changed a transport form by 1 digit and delayed the trip for 3 months. None of it sounded heroic. That made it harder for Corbin to hate her cleanly. "Why now?" Kara asked. Vera wiped her face with the heel of one hand. "Mr. Croft fired me in October. I objected to the sale of an older dog with bad hips. After that, I couldn't access the facilities." She looked at Rook's photograph again. "Last week I heard they were sending the dogs with no resale value to old rural sites until weather cleared. Some would be moved. Some." She stopped herself before the sentence became too much. "I knew the cabin. I knew Rook might be there. So she sent the envelope. I sent what I had without signing my name. I was still afraid." Corbin stared at her. The anger had not left him. It had only changed shape. It had become heavier, less useful. "You gave him 4 years in a cage," he said. Vera nodded. Tears slid down her face, but she did not ask him to comfort her. "And 4 years of food when no one else would have bothered," she said. "Both things are true. I don't know how to live with that. But I will tell you everything now." Adrian finally moved, sliding a fresh legal pad across the table. "Start with companies," he said. "Names on paper, not rumors." Vera took the pen. Her hand shook badly at first. Then the training of a woman who had kept records for decades steadied it. She wrote one company name, Larkspur Equipment Leasing, then a fleet number, then an address near the old Sunvale rail spur. Kira read the page once, and Corbin saw the shift in her expression. Not victory, direction. Vera set the pen down. There were dogs there 2 weeks ago, she said. If Mr. Croft is nervous, he won't keep them there long. Corbin looked toward the narrow interview room window. Outside, late sunlight shone over the snow-covered parking lot, too clean for what had just been said. He thought of Rook asleep on the clinic floor, choosing rest for the first time. Then he thought of the dogs still waiting for someone to arrive before their names disappeared too. Adrian Crowell did not believe in lucky breaks. He believed in receipts, mileage claims, fuel stops, purchase orders, camera timestamps, and the quiet arrogance of people who thought paperwork was too boring to become dangerous. By noon the next day, he had taken the names Vera Hensley provided and spread them across 3 monitors in the sheriff's office. Kira stood beside him with a coffee she had forgotten to drink. Corbin remained near the back wall, arms folded, his eyes moving between the screens and the snowy parking lot outside. Larkspur Equipment Leasing looked clean from a distance. It owned storage space. It rented agricultural equipment. It paid its county taxes on time. It had no public-facing link to North Meridian Animal Transit. Then Adrian began following the small overlaps. A fuel card registered to Larkspur had been used at stations along routes. North Meridian claimed it no longer operated. An insurance policy listed a modified cargo truck with added ventilation panels. A warehouse near the old Sunvale rail spur had been leased for seasonal machinery storage, though no farm equipment had been delivered there in 3 years. Kira leaned closer to the screen. That warehouse has no livestock permit. Correct, Adrian said, and no kennel license, also correct. Corbin pushed away from the wall. Then that's enough. Adrian did not turn from the monitor. It is enough to make me curious. It is not enough to get us through the door. Kira looked at Corbin before he could speak. We need probable cause tied to what may be inside now. Not just suspicious money. Adrian clicked to another file. Traffic cameras caught 3 trucks entering the service road after midnight over the past 2 weeks. One has a partial fleet number matching Vera's notes. But the building is on private property, the trucks are registered to a leasing company, and the stated cargo category is equipment. Dogs aren't equipment, Corbin said. No, Adrian replied quietly, but a judge needs more than our certainty. The room went still. Corbin hated the way the law could seem slow in the presence of suffering. He hated more that Kara was right. If they moved badly, they could lose whatever waited in Sunvale before they ever reached it. A thought came to him so suddenly that it felt like Gabriel's voice had crossed the room. Gabriel kept a maintenance book. Kira turned. For the transport van, for every vehicle his program used, fuel filters, tire rotations, kennel brackets, heater checks, he logged everything. But not just maintenance. Corbin rubbed a hand over his mouth. He used to hide notes in part numbers when he didn't want contractors to know what he was tracking. Adrian finally looked up. Where is the book? Corbin looked toward the windows again. I don't have it. The drive to Eleanor Stowe's house took 40 minutes and 4 years. Corbin followed Kara's SUV along the lake road, past snow-covered docks and bare cottonwoods. Clearwater Lake lay frozen under a clean sheet of white, with sunlight scattered across its surface like ground glass. The mountains rose beyond it, blue at the edges. He had not taken this road since the memorial service. Eleanor's house stood on a slight rise above the lake, painted pale gray with dark blue shutters. Smoke rose in a straight line from the chimney. The porch was shoveled clean. Kira offered to wait in the vehicle. Corbin shook his head. You should come in. This isn't just mine. Eleanor opened the door before they knocked twice. She was 59, slender and composed, with hickory brown hair gone silver through the front. A cream turtleneck showed beneath a long blue-gray cardigan. A small pearl earring caught the light at her left ear. Her face did not change when she saw Corbin, but one hand tightened around the edge of the door. Corbin, Eleanor. Her eyes moved to Kira. Deputy Donnelly, Clearwater County, Kira said. I'm sorry to come without much notice. Eleanor stepped aside. People usually are. The house looked as Corbin remembered, and not at all. Gabriel's boots no longer sat by the door. The hallway table still held a wooden bowl for keys. On the wall hung a photograph of Gabriel kneeling beside Rook in fresh snow, both of them looking off camera at something that must have made them happy. Corbin stopped before he meant to. Eleanor noticed. "That picture survived because I couldn't decide whether to put it away," she said. "I'm glad you didn't." She gave him a look that was not forgiveness, but it was not the old locked door either. They sat at the kitchen table, overlooking the lake. Kara explained the investigation carefully, leaving out nothing important and adding nothing dramatic. North Meridian, false records, Vera's statement, Larkspur, Sunvale. Eleanor listened without interruption until Kara said Rook's name, then her composure broke in one small place. "Rook is alive?" Corbin nodded. For a moment, Eleanor looked past him to the photograph in the hall, as though checking whether the world had changed behind her. "He was in an abandoned cabin," Corbin said. "He's safe now." "Not well yet, but safe." Eleanor pressed 2 fingers to the table, steadying herself. Gabriel always said that dog knew more about loyalty than most people. Corbin looked down. Gabriel was right. Silence settled between them, carrying years of unsaid things. Eleanor stood. "He sent a box home before that last trip. I thought it was receipts. I never understood half of it." She returned with a flat storage box tied with string. Inside were maintenance logs, fuel slips, printed emails, spare kennel tags, and a spiral notebook with an oil stain across the cover. Corbin recognized Gabriel's handwriting before he touched it. The letters leaned right. The numbers were too precise for a man who laughed as easily as Gabriel had. Adrian arrived 20 minutes later after Kara called him. He entered with his leather briefcase and removed his gloves with the focus of a man stepping into a library, not a crime scene. Eleanor watched him spread the documents with visible doubt until he explained every movement before he made it. "I won't take originals without a receipt," Adrian said. "We can scan here first." That softened her by a fraction. They worked through the box at the kitchen table while winter lights slid lower over the lake. At first, the notebook seemed ordinary. Dates, vehicle numbers, brake lines, kennel door repairs, heater replacements. Then Adrian stopped on a page marked with part numbers. Why would a water pump code be written next to a canine ID? Corbin leaned in. Gabriel had written WP13T beside one transport record. Below it, a dog listed as unsuitable for placement. Another line used BF2NEEN, a brake filter code. Then 3 microchip numbers. Corbin felt the pattern before he could explain it. He used parts as flags, he said. Water pump meant missing paperwork. Brake filter meant false medical note. Air hose meant route change. Adrian began cross-checking Vera's list. 1 match, then another, then 6. Kira's jaw tightened, Gabriel knew. Eleanor was standing now, one hand at the back of a chair. "He told me he was worried about dogs being misplaced," she said. That was the word he used. Misplaced. I thought he meant incompetence. Adrian lifted a printed email from the box. It was addressed to a state investigator, scheduled to meet at 9 a.m. the morning after the accident. Gabriel had written that he believed North Meridian was altering transfer outcomes and that at least 5 dogs marked unfit might have been diverted. At the bottom was a sentence Corbin read twice. "If I am wrong, I will apologize to everyone involved. If I am right, I do not want these dogs disappearing one at a time until no one can prove they existed." Eleanor turned away from the table. Corbin did not reach for her. He had forfeited that ease years ago. "I thought you convinced him to drive that night," she said. Corbin closed the notebook carefully. "I thought you blamed me for surviving it." She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "I did. Some days. Then I blamed myself for letting him go. Then I blamed weather, work, pride, God, and every truck that passed this house after dark." Corbin looked at the photograph in the hall. "I stopped coming because I thought I was doing you a kindness. You were doing yourself one." He accepted that because it was true. Kira's phone rang before the silence could deepen. She stepped to the mudroom and answered. Her voice stayed calm, but Corbin saw her posture change through the doorway. When she returned, the room had shifted with her. "Sheriff's office got a call from a highway contact," she said. "A large ventilated cargo truck connected to Larkspur is scheduled for an early departure from the Sunvale warehouse within 48 hours. Destination listed as Idaho. Cargo category, equipment." Adrian began stacking scans into evidence sleeves. With Gabriel's records, Vera's statement, the altered canine IDs, the lease, the traffic footage, and the scheduled movement, we can make the warrant application much stronger. "How fast?" Corbin asked. Kara met his eyes. "Fast enough if no one interferes." He heard the warning. He did not like it. By the time they left Eleanor's house, the sun had dropped behind the ridgeline and the lake had turned blue-white under the first shadows. Eleanor walked them to the porch, holding Gabriel's notebook against her chest. At the steps, she stopped Corbin. "If Rook can have visitors," she said, "I would like to see him." "He remembers Gabriel's things," Corbin said. Her face trembled, only briefly. "Then maybe he can remember for both of us until we're ready." At the clinic that evening, Corbin found Rook awake on his blanket, stronger than the week before but still thin through the hips. Felicity stood beside the kennel, reading the message Kara had just sent. "No," Felicity said before Corbin spoke. He looked at her. "You don't know what I'm going to ask." "I do." Kira, standing near the exam counter, folded her arms. "You are not going to Sunvale with the entry team. I know those dogs. I know the equipment." "You can advise from outside if needed," Kira said. "You are a witness, you are emotionally involved, and you are not an officer." "I was trained for worse rooms than a warehouse." Felicity stepped between the kennel and the argument, not physically blocking him, just reminding him who would hear every word. "And Rook was trained for worse rooms too," she said. "Look where that got him." Corbin went quiet. Rook had lifted his head. His amber eyes moved from Kira to Felicity to Corbin. Felicity lowered her voice. "He is still weak. If you leave him tonight chasing what happened 4 years ago, he will not understand duty. He will understand absence." The sentence did what anger could not. It stopped him. All those years, Corbin had believed his failure was that he had not stayed strong enough to hold on to the past. Now the harder thing was being asked of him, to stay still while others walked toward danger, to trust procedure, to trust Kara, to trust that he did not have to personally stand in every doorway for the outcome to matter. The next morning came bright and windless. A joint team gathered outside the sheriff's office, county vehicles, state investigators, animal control vans with heated compartments and a veterinary response truck. No sirens, no spectacle. Just people checking radios, paperwork, transport crates, medical kits, and routes. Corbin stood outside the North Haven clinic in his green rescue jacket, one hand resting near the old brass whistle in his pocket. Rook sat beside his left boot, wrapped in a fitted warming coat Felicity had insisted on, his head high but his body leaning lightly against Corbin's leg. Kira crossed the lot before leaving. "We'll call if we need identification." Corbin nodded. "Bring them out slow," he said. "That's the plan." She gave Rook a brief look, not touching him. "Hold him here." Corbin almost answered that no one held Rook anymore. Instead he said, "We'll be here." The convoy rolled out beneath the clear winter sun, tires pressing dark tracks through the snow. Corbin watched until the last vehicle disappeared past the bakery and down the road toward Sunvale. Rook did not bark. Corbin did not follow. For the first time since the accident, he let the past move away from him without running after it, and stayed beside the life that had come back. The Sunvale warehouse stood beyond a line of cottonwoods, where the old rail spur disappeared beneath snow and weeds. From a distance, it looked almost harmless. A low metal building with faded green siding, a sagging loading dock, and a row of dirty windows catching the pale gold of winter morning. A hand-painted sign near the access road still advertised equipment storage, though nothing about the place suggested regular work or honest traffic. The joint team did not rush it. That was the first thing Corbin noticed from the medical staging area half a mile down the service road. No shouting, no dramatic engines, no reckless charge through the snow. Just deputies, state investigators, animal control officers, veterinary staff, and trained dog handlers moving through a plan they had reviewed until every person knew where to stand. He stood beside a heated veterinary transport van with Rook at his left side. Felicity had argued against bringing Rook at all. Corbin had not argued back as strongly as he once would have. In the end, she allowed it only because Rook was not going near the warehouse, not walking long distances, and not being used to identify anything. He wore a fitted warming coat, and a soft leather collar rested loosely around his neck. No chain, no tactical vest, no hard equipment. If he shows fatigue, stress, or confusion, Felicity said, standing close enough for only Corbin to hear, he goes back into the van. No debate. Corbin nodded. I mean it. I heard you. No, she said, looking at him over the top of her glasses. You agreed. Those are different things. That earned the faintest movement at the corner of his mouth. Rook leaned lightly against Corbin's boot, not for support exactly, but contact. His amber eyes followed the activity around the staging area. Crates lined with blankets, portable scanners, bowls of warm water, towels, clipboards, quiet people with careful hands. Farther up the road, Kira's voice moved through the radio. Warrant confirmed. Entry team is at the south door. Animal recovery team standing by. Corbin kept one hand near Rook's shoulder, not touching unless the dog leaned into him first. The radio clicked again. Door open. We have transport kennels visible. Nobody celebrated. A woman from animal control, stocky and silver-haired, crossed herself quickly before lifting the first empty crate from the van. Corbin looked toward the warehouse. Sunlight reflected off its metal roof. For years, Rook's life had been hidden behind places like that. Ordinary buildings, legal-sounding companies, locked doors marked storage. The radio crackled. Multiple dogs inside. Repeat, multiple dogs. Conditions stable enough for controlled extraction, no loose animals. Felicity released a breath without seeming to know she had held it. The first dog arrived 20 minutes later. A black and tan shepherd, female, older, wearing a collar with the number plate, filed almost smooth. She came out in a rolling crate pushed by two handlers, eyes wide, paws braced against the rubber floor. A veterinary technician spoke to her in a low voice and slid a scanner along her shoulder. Corbin read the partial tag from several feet away. Old federal issue, he said. Early replacement band. Not commercial. A deputy wrote it down. Then came another dog. Then a third. A sable shepherd with cloudy eyes. A lean Dutch shepherd mixed with a shaved patch where a chip should have been checked. A Belgian Malinois whose ribs showed too clearly beneath a dirty coat. None were released into the open. Each was documented, scanned, photographed gently, given water, and transferred into a heated compartment with a number that matched the evidence log. The slowness mattered. Corbin understood that now. Once, he would have wanted every door open at once. Every dog out, every person moving fast enough to outrun what had been done. But frightened animals did not heal in chaos. Evidence did not survive good intentions handled badly. The radio clicked. Deputy Donnelly to West. Corbin lifted the handset. West. We have an older German shepherd in kennel row 2, male, panicking at the gate. Tag has a hand signal chart, but the listed verbal commands are inconsistent. Collar looks modified. Can you advise from a distance? Corbin closed his eyes briefly, seeing the rows he had not entered. Describe the collar. Wide leather, tan underside, 2 short-stitched bars on the left. Brass rivet near the ring. Training transition collar, Corbin said. Used when a dog had more than one handler. Don't crowd the front. No direct eye contact. Whoever is closest, turn sideways. Right hand low, palm back, then open once. No words. A pause. Then Kira's voice, quieter. Copy. The radio stayed open enough for him to hear muffled movement. Boots on concrete. A handler breathing slowly. A low canine whine. Then Kira. He's looking. Corbin kept his voice even. Give him time. If he looks away, don't follow his eyes. Let him choose the handler. Another stretch of silence. He lowered his head, Kira said. Good. Open the latch halfway and step back. The wait felt longer than it could have been. Finally, the radio clicked again. He's out. No incident. Good call, West. Corbin lowered the handset. Rook looked up at him. "I didn't go in," Corbin said softly, as if the dog had asked. Rook blinked once. It should not have felt like praise. The Belgian Malinois arrived near noon. He was smaller than Rook, but wound tight with fear. Every line of his body pulled toward escape. The handlers moved him into the crate beside Rook's resting mat, while Felicity prepared to examine him. The young dog struck the side of the crate with one paw, not aggressive, only overwhelmed. Rook stood. Corbin's hand moved instinctively, then stopped before touching the collar. "Easy," he whispered, not as a command but as a hope. Rook did not bark. He did not lunge toward the crate. He took 3 slow steps, lowered himself near the side panel, and turned his body away from the Malinois. His back faced the crate. His head rested on his paws. The Malinois kept trembling for a while. Then the pawing slowed. His nose appeared near the lower bars, sniffing. Rook remained still, offering no challenge, no demand, no pressure. Felicity watched with her stethoscope in one hand. "Well," she murmured, "that is a kind of medicine too." Corbin looked down at Rook and felt something inside him loosen. For years he had measured Rook by the tasks they once completed together. Tracking, guarding, responding, staying steady when people around them could not. But maybe the truest part of Rook had never been the work. Maybe it had been this, the ability to make fear feel less alone. Inside the warehouse, the search moved toward the office wing. Kira stepped around rows of labeled crates, her boots leaving wet prints on the concrete. The air smelled of old hay, diesel, disinfectant, and closed windows. State investigators photographed file cabinets and tagged hard drives, while Animal Control finished checking the last kennel room. Most of the employees had been found in the front office and detained without struggle. A few claimed they only handled storage contracts. One driver insisted he had never opened the cargo area. The truth would have to be sorted later. Kara cared about later. But first, she cared about every living animal leaving the building. "Office hall secure?" she asked. A state trooper answered from the far doorway, "Mostly. One rear exit wasn't on the floor plan." Kira turned. A man in a dark work coat moved past the frosted window beyond the office hall. He did not run. That would have drawn attention. He walked quickly, head low, one gloved hand, adjusting the cuff of his sleeve as though he belonged wherever he was going. Kira knew his face from Adrian's file. Benton Croft looked less like a criminal than an insurance executive who had taken a wrong turn. Broad face, pale blue eyes, gray-blonde beard trimmed neatly, boots too clean for a warehouse floor. Croft exiting rear west side. Kira said into the radio, "Moving toward service lot." At the medical staging area, Corbin was helping a technician record a microchip number when Rook's entire body changed. The old shepherd lifted his head, his ears drew back, his weight shifted forward. A sound rolled low in his chest, so quiet at first that Corbin felt it before he heard it. Then Corbin smelled it too. Cedar cologne over diesel. A man emerged between 2 parked utility trucks, walking fast toward a dark SUV near the outer service road. His coat was blue-black, his gloves leather. He carried no visible weapon. He did not look desperate. He looked annoyed, as if the world had become inconvenient. Rook took 1 step forward. Corbin did not grab him. "Rook," he said, voice steady. The man stopped. His pale eyes moved from Corbin to the dog. For the first time, Benton Croft's composure cracked, not fear exactly, but recognition sharpened by disbelief. "Well," Benton said, "that old thing." Rook trembled. The words meant nothing to most people there. The voice did. Benton's mouth tightened, and he gave a short command in a tone that had once belonged to closed rooms and metal doors. "Down." Rook's body dipped for half a breath. Corbin felt the old urge to answer for him, to cover the sound with a better command, a safer one, something from before. Instead, he crouched beside Rook without touching him. "Rook," he said again gently. "Just your name?" Rook stopped shaking. He stepped forward until he stood Benton and Corbin, body aligned, head low, not attacking, not retreating. Then he barked once. The sound cut across the staging area like a flare. Kira came around the rear truck with 2 officers moving behind her. "Benton Croft," she called. "Stop where you are." Benton glanced toward the SUV, then toward the officers. calculating distance and failure at the same time. Rook barked again. He did not move closer. That was enough. The officers detained Benton without a struggle worth remembering. Kira removed a key ring and a folded document pouch from his coat pocket, while another deputy read him his rights in a calm, procedural voice. Benton looked once more at Rook. "He was never worth this much trouble," he said. Corbin stood. For a moment, the entire cold day narrowed to that sentence. Then Rook turned away from Benton and walked back to Corbin on his own. Corbin knelt, one hand open at his side. Rook pressed his head into the space beneath Corbin's palm. No command, no performance, only choice. By late afternoon, the office search had uncovered more than anyone at the scene wanted, and less than anyone needed for closure. Stacked ledgers, external drives, transfer contracts, altered medical forms, lists of dogs moved through shell companies under changed names. Adrian arrived before sunset to oversee the financial evidence intake, his dark coat dusted with snow and his expression grave. "This will take weeks," he told Kira and Corbin. "Maybe months. The records are good, but they're tangled." Croft built distance between himself and the worst parts. Kira nodded. "But we have the dogs." Adrian looked toward the line of heated vans. "Yes," he said, "that part is not theoretical." One by one, the transport vehicles left Sunvale. No sirens, no applause, no speeches for the cameras. Just careful drivers moving slowly over snow-packed roads, carrying old dogs, frightened dogs, tired dogs, dogs with names scratched out and lives waiting to be restored. The last light of the day fell through the warehouse windows and turned the concrete floor gold. Corbin stood beside Rook as the final van pulled away. The old shepherd's body leaned against his leg, weary but upright. Across the road, the Sunvale building no longer looked harmless. It looked empty in the way a place looks when the truth has finally been carried out of it. Corbin lowered his hand to Rook's shoulder. "You did enough," he said. Rook closed his eyes. For once, that was all anyone asked of him. The days after Sunvale did not feel like victory. They felt like paperwork, medicine, careful driving, and doors opening slowly. The sheriff's office filled with file boxes from the warehouse. State investigators came and went with sealed evidence bags. Adrian Crowell spent long hours behind a borrowed desk, building timelines out of invoices, fuel receipts, signed contracts, and the names of dogs that had been changed so many times they almost looked like strangers to themselves. North Meridian's reach proved wider than Clearwater County. A shepherd listed as deceased in Montana had been photographed 2 years later outside a private compound in Idaho. A Belgian Malinois marked unfit for placement appeared in Wyoming under a different age and a new chip record. 2 retired dogs meant for a nonprofit in Oregon had never arrived, though the nonprofit had signed payment confirmations that looked real until Adrian compared the signatures. Benton Croft did not confess. He spoke through an attorney, denied knowledge of mistreatment, and insisted North Meridian had relied on subcontractors. He called the altered records clerical failures. He called the Sunvale warehouse temporary storage. He called the dogs assets in dispute. Corbin heard that phrase once from Kara and asked her not to repeat it. She didn't. Charges began forming the way winter ice formed on the lake, slow at first, then thicker every day. Fraud, false transport records, unlawful possession of animals under false documentation, obstruction tied to altered files. More would come if the evidence held. But the law did not move at the speed of grief. That was the hardest part for Corbin to accept. He wanted every file opened, every name restored, every person responsible placed in the full light of what they had done. Instead, he watched Adrian initial boxes and Kara sign forms. He watched prosecutors request more documentation. He watched animals rescued from cages wait in recovery rooms, while strangers tried to learn who they had been before North Meridian renamed them. Vera Hensley agreed to testify within the first week. No one celebrated that either. She came to the sheriff's office in a brown cardigan and a cream blouse buttoned to the throat, her pale hair tied low with a faded blue strip of cloth. She carried the same burgundy canvas bag, but it seemed lighter now, as if the years inside it had finally begun to move somewhere else. Corbin saw her through the glass wall of the interview room and nearly turned away. Kara noticed. You don't have to sit in. I know. You also don't have to forgive her for telling the truth late. Corbin kept his eyes on Vera. I'm not close to that, then don't pretend to be. Vera gave a full statement. She described the first false file she noticed, the first chip number she was told not to scan again, the first dog marked unsuitable because a buyer had already offered more money elsewhere. She gave dates, employee names, kennel locations, and the internal codes used to hide living animals inside dead paperwork. The prosecutor took her cooperation seriously, but not gently. Vera had changed records. Vera had remained employed. Vera had let fear become part of the machinery. Those facts did not disappear because she cried. They also did not erase the small notebook Felicity found inside Vera's medical records. The notebook had no grand title. Its blue cover was bent at the corners, and the pages smelled faintly of antiseptic and old storage rooms. Felicity brought it to Corbin one evening at the clinic after Rook had fallen asleep. I think you should see this, she said. Corbin did not want to. That was why he took it. Inside were dates and dosages, written in Vera's neat slanted hand, joint supplements, antibiotic ointment, soft food, notes about stress after transport, notes about refusal to eat near metal doors, notes about which blankets Rook tolerated and which sounds made him retreat. One entry read, he rested today after I moved the chain from the front latch to the side. Less pressure on neck. Must not let BC see adjustment. Another, bought medication myself. Replaced missing tablets in stock bottle. If questioned, say inventory error. And another, written nearly 2 years earlier. He still responds to the old 2-note signal, but I will not use it. That belongs to someone else. Corbin closed the notebook. For a while he said nothing. Felicity waited beside the treatment counter, hands folded into the sleeves of her gray fleece. She kept him alive, Corbin said at last. Yes, she also kept him hidden. Yes, he looked down at the blue cover. Both shouldn't be true. Most things that hurt us don't ask permission to be simple. Rook came home on a bright morning with soft snow falling through sunlight. Corbin had prepared the house as carefully as if he were bringing back someone recovering from a long hospital stay, which, in a way, he was. He removed every chain from the yard, even the old tow chain hanging by the shed. He replaced stainless steel bowls with heavy ceramic ones that made no sharp sound against the floor. He moved the tool racks out of the mudroom and placed rubber mats across the hallway so Rook would not slip. He left the bedroom door open, the porch light on, and the back gate unlatched but secured with a low wooden bar instead of metal hardware. Felicity walked through the house before approving it. You changed the bowls, she said. He didn't like metal. I noticed. You noticed first. She gave him a small smile. You noticed after it mattered. Rook entered slowly. The cabin smelled of pine boards, wool blankets, stove heat, old leather, and Corbin. He stood in the doorway for several seconds, nose working, ears adjusting to the quiet. The right ear with the crescent missing tilted outward whenever the floorboards creaked. Corbin did not pull the leash. Rook moved first to the living room window, then to the kitchen, then back to the open front door. He stood there a long time, as though measuring the distance between shelter and escape. You can keep the door, Corbin said from the table. For the first week, Rook slept near exits. At night he chose the rug by the bedroom doorway, never the bed Corbin had placed beside the stove. If the furnace clicked too loudly, Rook rose and paced the hall. If Corbin closed a cabinet too hard, the old shepherd lowered his head and moved into the corner behind the chair. Some mornings, Rook allowed Corbin to brush his shoulders. Other mornings, when Corbin's hand came too close to the collar line, Rook stepped away and would not look back for an hour. Corbin learned the geography of patience. He learned that progress did not move forward like a road. It circled, it wandered, it stopped without explanation. A dog could rest his head on your boot at breakfast and refuse your touch by noon. A creature could love you and still fear the shape of your hand if the light fell wrong. The old part of Corbin wanted Rook to respond the way he once had, just once. A heel at his left side, a steady sit, a glance up at the two-note signal. Proof that 4 years had not taken everything. He never asked. Sometimes the wanting itself made him ashamed. One afternoon, Eleanor Stowe came to the cabin. Corbin saw her car before she knocked. It paused at the end of the driveway as though she, too, needed permission from the past before approaching the house. She wore a long blue coat and gray gloves, her hickory hair tucked behind one ear. In her hands was a dark cloth bag. "I called Felicity," she said when Corbin opened the door. "She said today might be all right. Come in." Eleanor stepped inside and stood very still. Rook lay near the stove, head lifted, body relaxed but watchful. He studied Eleanor's face first, then the bag. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single leather glove, honey brown and softened with age. Corbin knew it before she lifted it fully into the light. Gabriel's training glove. For a moment the cabin held 3 lives and 1 absence. Rook rose. No one spoke. He crossed the room slowly, each step careful. When he reached Eleanor, she knelt with difficulty, holding the glove flat across both palms. Rook lowered his nose to it. He breathed in. Twice. Then he folded himself down beside her, laying his chin across the glove as if it were not leather at all. But a hand finally returned. Eleanor covered her mouth, but the sound still escaped. Corbin turned toward the window. He had seen Rook recognize him. He had seen Rook resist Benton's command. He had seen Rook calm another frightened dog. This was different. This was Rook remembering someone who could not come back. Eleanor sat on the floor longer than her knees wanted. Rook stayed beside her, eyes half closed, one paw touching the glove. "I blamed you," she said eventually. Corbin did not answer. Not every day. Some days I blamed the storm. Some days I blamed Gabriel because he always believed being right was safer than being quiet. But blaming you was easier. You were alive. I blamed myself enough for both of us. That doesn't make it true. No, Corbin said. It just made it familiar. Eleanor looked up at him. I avoided you because if I admitted Gabriel chose to keep digging, I had to admit he knew there was danger and went anyway. Corbin leaned against the counter, arms loose at his sides. I avoided you because I thought I had failed him twice. Once on the road. Once by surviving after I stopped searching for Rook. Rook lifted his head at his name but did not move away from the glove. Eleanor wiped her face with the edge of her sleeve, then gave a breath that almost became a laugh. He would hate this, you know. Gabriel? He hated wasted time. Corbin looked around the room, the bowls, the open door. The bed Rook did not use, the old leash folded near the stove. We wasted some. Yes, she said, but not all of it. They spent the afternoon sorting Gabriel's remaining files at Corbin's kitchen table. Eleanor agreed to provide the original notebook, emails, and maintenance records to Kara and Adrian. Corbin signed a statement clarifying the route instructions, the weather conditions, and Gabriel's concerns before the trip. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no easy peace. Only 2 people doing the next right thing because the man they had lost had tried to do the same. When Eleanor left, Rook walked with her to the door. She did not try to take the glove back. Keep it here, she said. Maybe he needs it more than I do. That night, snow brushed softly against the windows. Corbin woke sometime after midnight, unsure what had pulled him from sleep. The house was quiet. The furnace had not clicked. No door had closed. No vehicle moved outside. He looked toward the bedroom doorway. The rug was empty. For one cold second, his body forgot the present. Then he heard breathing beside the bed. Rook lay on the floor within arm's reach, his back turned away from the open door. One front paw rested across the old blue leash with the yellow stitching. His head was down. His eyes were closed. He was asleep, not watching, not braced toward an exit, not ready to leave before being left. Corbin did not touch him. He lay back slowly and stared at the ceiling until his vision blurred. The years could not be returned. The road could not be untraveled. Gabriel could not walk through the door, and Rook could not become the young dog who had vanished into snow. But in the dark, beside a man who finally understood that love was not a command, an old German shepherd slept without preparing to run. And for that one night, it was enough. By the time the first gray of spring touched the edges of the Clearwater Valley, North Meridian Animal Transit no longer existed. The sign came down on a Monday morning without ceremony. A county crew removed the letters one by one from the front of the company office, while 2 state investigators watched from the parking lot. Snow still lay in the shadows beneath the loading ramps, but the roof had begun to drip in the noon sun. Benton Croft's name remained in court documents, not headlines. That suited Corbin. The case was not finished, not in the clean way people wanted stories to finish. Some charges were still being reviewed. Some subcontractors claimed ignorance. A few former employees cooperated only after their own records were placed in front of them. Adrian Crowell continued to build the financial trail slowly, patiently, connecting fuel cards, leasing contracts, altered invoices, and dogs who had been declared gone while still breathing somewhere under another name. No single document saved everyone. No single confession made the truth easy. But the company was closed. Its transport license was gone. Several of its vehicles and part of its assets had been seized to help pay for medical care, recovery housing, and long-term placement for the dogs taken from Sunvale and other sites later identified through the records. That was enough to begin. Not enough to erase. Enough to begin. Corbin did not become a deputy. He did not accept a public role with the sheriff's office, though more than one person suggested he should. Kara Donnelly never pushed the idea. She knew him better by then. A badge would not heal what had been broken, and Corbin had already spent too many years confusing responsibility with standing in front of every door. Instead, he asked about the old feed warehouse east of North Haven. It had tall windows, good southern exposure, a cracked concrete floor, and enough distance from town that barking would not disturb anyone. In winter, the place caught light all day. Beyond the back wall stood a gentle slope of white pine and fir, the trees lifting green and quiet against the sky. Corbin saw rusted heaters, stuck doors, bad drainage, loose insulation, and money no one had. Then he saw what it could become. Felicity Arden saw treatment rooms, Kira saw intake records, chain of custody storage, and background checks for adopters. Eleanor Stowe saw a way to give Gabriel's name to something that kept working after grief had exhausted itself. The sign above the door did not say rescue shelter. It did not say hero center. Eleanor insisted on that. In clean dark letters it read, "The Gabriel Stowe Rest House for Retired Working Dogs," beneath it smaller, "A place to recover before going home." Corbin fixed the heating system first. He replaced the old furnace with a quiet unit that did not bang before starting. He ran soft rubber along the bottom edges of the kennel doors so they closed without a hard metallic sound. He built rest stalls without chains, using low wooden gates and wide latches shaped for human hands rather than speed. The yards were small on purpose. Each one faced the pines. Each one had a covered corner, a heated water bowl, and a gate that opened smoothly. No dog needed to see a long fence line and wonder if it had to patrol it. Felicity designed the medical room with pale walls, non-slip floors, and examination tables that lowered all the way down. She wrote feeding plans and pain management schedules in handwriting so clear. Even Corbin admitted he could read it without guessing. Kira built the intake process like a promise. Every dog's identity would be verified 3 ways if possible. No animal would be transferred by paperwork alone. Every adopter, handler, organization, and care facility would be checked before a dog left the rest house. Eleanor managed the fund from a small office overlooking the front yard. Gabriel's old photograph sat on her desk. Not the formal one in uniform, but the picture of him laughing beside Rook in snow. The leather training glove rested beside it, except on days when Rook decided it belonged on the floor in the sun. Vera Hensley came on Tuesdays and Fridays. At first, no one knew what to do with her. She had testified. She had cooperated. She had accepted the legal consequences tied to the records she had altered. The prosecutor considered her help, but consideration was not forgiveness. Vera understood that better than anyone. She arrived early, wearing gray-blue scrubs under an oatmeal sweater, and asked Felicity where the laundry was. For the first month, she washed blankets, scrubbed food bowls, sorted soft collars by size, and prepared meals exactly as written. She did not ask to handle dogs. She did not ask to speak at meetings. She did not ask Corbin whether he had read more of her notebook. Sometimes Rook watched her from across the room. He did not go to her. She never called him. One morning, a newly arrived shepherd refused to eat unless someone sat outside the stall. Vera took a folded blanket, sat with her back against the opposite wall, and opened a worn paperback without turning a page. After half an hour, the dog stood and approached the bowl. Felicity saw it, so did Corbin. No one praised Vera loudly. The work itself was the only answer she was allowed to earn. Rook never became the symbol people wanted him to be. A local paper asked to photograph him in front of the rest house sign. Corbin declined. Someone suggested a vest with honorary patches. Felicity said absolutely not before Corbin had the chance. Rook had worn enough labels. He spent his mornings where he chose, sometimes on the heated mat near Corbin's workshop, sometimes beside Eleanor's office door, sometimes in the yard closest to the pines, where sunlight touched the faded gold of his coat and made the silver around his muzzle shine. He still had difficult days. Cold mornings tightened his right hind leg. Sudden metal sounds could make him stand and search for distance. He did not like anyone reaching over his neck, but he no longer slept facing every exit. He no longer woke each time Corbin moved in the night. And when frightened dogs arrived, Rook often came near on his own, not too close, never crowding. He would sit where he could be seen but not touched, his damaged right ear tilted outward, his body quiet. Some dogs ignored him. Some watched him for hours. Some stopped shaking only after Rook lay down and turned his back, showing them there was no threat behind his stillness. Corbin came to understand that this was Rook's true gift, not finding trails, not obeying commands, not standing brave because a person asked him to. Rook knew how to make survival feel less lonely. Near the end of winter, Corbin and Eleanor drove to Clearwater Pass. The road was open now. Snowbanks stood high on either side, cut clean by plows, and the morning sky was so blue it seemed almost new. Corbin drove slowly, not because the road was unsafe, but because part of him still expected the old storm to rise from the trees and claim the mountain again. Eleanor sat beside him with Gabriel's glove in her lap. Rook rode in the back seat on a padded blanket, head lifted between the front seats. He watched the road in silence. At the turnout near the accident site, Corbin parked and turned off the engine. For a while, none of them moved. The pass was quieter than memory. No radio static, no spinning snow, no flashing lights, only wind moving gently through white pines and sunlight bright on the ridge. Together, Corbin and Eleanor carried a small wooden marker to a cleared place near the trees. It was simple, sealed against weather, with Gabriel's name carved into the center. Below it were the words Eleanor had chosen. He helped the faithful find their way home. No rank, no grand claim, no attempt to make loss look noble enough to stop hurting. Corbin fixed the marker into place. Eleanor brushed snow from its base with one gloved hand. Rook stood beside Corbin, wearing only his soft brown collar. His nose lifted toward the wind. For a moment, his body seemed to remember something too large for any human to name. Corbin reached into his pocket and took out the old brass whistle. He did not put it to his mouth. After a pause, he shaped the two quiet notes the way he had on the day they found Rook in the cabin. Rook turned his head. The old signal crossed the cold air between them. Once long ago, that sound had meant "look at me." Now it meant nothing so simple. Rook looked at Corbin, then at Eleanor. He stepped toward her first and touched his nose to Gabriel's glove. Eleanor's breath caught, but she did not reach too quickly. Then Rook returned to Corbin and stood against his leg. No one called it obedience. No one called it proof. It was only goodbye, arriving 4 years late, and still somehow on time. The final snow of the season came soft and quiet. It fell in the morning outside Corbin's cabin, not in heavy storm clouds, but in loose white flakes that drifted lazily through the pines. The yard had changed since Rook came home. The old chains were gone. The gate no longer locked with metal teeth. A low wooden rail marked the boundary, easy to see, easy to cross if someone truly wanted to leave. Corbin opened the front door and stepped back. Rook stood in the doorway, gray around the muzzle, gold and black coat brushed clean, the swallowtail shape of his saddle visible under the pale light, his right ear tilted outward, his white toe pressed into the fresh snow. Corbin waited. Rook walked into the yard. He went all the way to the wooden rail and looked toward the white pines beyond it. Snow settled on his back, his tail hung low and easy. He stood there long enough for Corbin to feel the old instinct rise, the urge to call him back before the world could take him again. Corbin did not call. He let the door remain open. After a while, Rook turned. He walked back through the snow at his own pace, climbed the porch steps, and entered the cabin. He crossed the room to Corbin's old boots and lowered himself beside them with a tired sigh. Corbin sat on the floor beside him. This time, when he placed his hand on Rook's silvered head, the old dog did not flinch. Corbin understood then that Rook's final duty had never been to find evidence, stop a man, guard a door, or prove that loyalty could survive anything. His final duty was peace, to eat without fear, to sleep without guarding an exit, to walk outside and return because he chose to. And Corbin's final duty was quieter than any mission he had ever accepted. He had to stay, long enough for Rook to believe that morning would come and the door would still be open. Long enough for the old dog to wake and find not a command, not a cage, not another road into the storm, but home. Rook's story reminds us that healing does not always mean getting back the years we lost. Sometimes, healing begins when we stop demanding the past to return exactly as it was and learn to be gentle with what still remains. In life, we may carry regrets, unfinished goodbyes, or people and moments we could not protect. But grace can still meet us in quiet places, an open door, a second chance, a loyal friend choosing to come home. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of loyalty, hope, and healing. May God bring peace to every heart still learning how to rest after loss.